Hey, welcome back. Today's video, I'll be showing you how you can automate your report simply by allowing your users to select the data. We'll import that data into the report, then we'll add a little bit of formula, a sprinkle of format condition, and then we'll bake all that into a summary sheet. Let's go check it out. So we'll start off with a new sub, and I will be calling it copy data. So what happens if your code encounters an error? You want to be able to let your user know that an error happened. So I would enter a line that says on error, we'll go to exit. So now we'll add a line that says exit sub, and then we'll have our error exit, which we mentioned earlier. Next, we'll have a message box that will simply say something went wrong while retrieving roster. So that way your user knows that something happened and that the code stops. Next, we'll declare some variables that we'll be using within this subroutine. The ones I'll be using is fname for file name as string, then SWB as workbook, we'll be using as source workbook. Then we have DWB as workbook, which is our destination workbook. Then C as range as our criteria, S as range for our source, D as range for our destination, and ARY as a variant for our array. Next, we're going to let Excel know what our destination workbook is. So we're just simply going to set DWB equals this workbook. Then we're going to check our roster sheet to make sure that there's no auto filter. So this line is going to tell us that our destination workbook with the roster sheet dot auto filter mode equals true. If it's true, if it has a filter on, then we're going to simply put in range A1 autofilter. Now, if this is false, it's going to skip this section over here. And what we want to do after we check for the autofilter is to clear the sheet. I simply like to use delete. Make sure there's nothing left in the entire worksheet. Next, we're going to put in our array for our header. So ARY equals array, and then we have our array of headers. I only have 2 columns for this purpose. Your data may have more. You can just continue to enter whatever data you want to enter as your header. So we're going to paste our array into our worksheet in range A1, dwb.worksheets roster, range A1 to B1, dot value equals array. If you have more than 2 columns, you would enter the total amount of columns. So for example, if I had 4 columns, A, B, C, D, it would be from A1 to D1. Next, we're going to open the dialog box for the user to select the file. So fname equals the application.getOpenFileName, and then we're simply going to mention it's going to be an Excel file, .xlsx, and then the title of the file that we want. Next, we want to mention if no file name is selected, then we're going to exit the subroutine. Otherwise, it could cause an error. Next, we're going to let Excel know what our source workbook is. So we're simply going to mention SWB equals workbook.openedFileName. Next, we're going to let Excel know what some of our other variables are. So for S, it's going to be source workbook.activesheet.range A1.current region, which means we're going to select all the data that's adjacent to range A1. Next, it's going to be our destination, dwb.worksheet equals roster.range A1.current region. Next is our criteria, which is our header row. So it's going to be destination workbook.worksheets roster.range A1 and everything that's adjacent to that cell. Next, we want to set where the destination is. So D equals destination workbook.worksheets roster.range A1.current region. Then we're going to start our copy paste by simply adding s.advancedFilter. We're going to use the Excel filter copy with the criteria what we set as C, and then our destination where we set as D. Next, we want to close our source workbook by simply adding swb.close false, which means it's going to close the workbook without saving. Now we'll go ahead and press F5 or the green button up here to run our subroutine. And simply the pop-up box here with the title roster, then we're going to select our file. And as you can see, it copy and pasted our employee name and our employee ID number. There are other ways to copy and paste your data in VBA. I like to use the advanced filter method because if I have a large data set, 20, 30 plus columns, and I only need a few columns which are scattered throughout that data set, I can use the criteria within the advanced filter to quickly copy the columns that I want instead of copying the entire data set. So now that we got this code working for just the roster sheet, suppose you have other sheets that you want to do the same as well. You can simply copy your entire dataset, paste underneath, and just update the subroutine name. But that can get really messy if you have 5 or more sheets that you have in all these subroutines. Let me show you a better way. We're going to use the select case method. And there's a few things that we need to do. First, we're going to change this from a subroutine to a function. Next, we're going to put SHT with the $sign, which means it's a string, which refers to the sheet name. Then we're going to come down here below the set workbook. We're going to enter select case, SHT. Then we're going to enter case and then the sheet name, which this is going to be for the roster. Next, we're going to copy this and we're going to paste it underneath, and we're going to change this from roster to leave of absence. Then we're going to make sure we update everything that says roster to leave of absence. Press Control F. We're going to go to replace. I'm going to change find what to roster, and then underneath I'm going to replace it with leave of absence so that I can quickly replace all the words that says roster to leave of absence. Then of course I also need to update the header values as well. So I'm just going to go ahead and update those values. And there we go. Next, we're going to insert a new module where we can select our case. So now that I have my module, I'm going to type in a subroutine, call it get files. Again, I'm going to declare some variables. So I'm going to do SHT as worksheet and WB as workbook. Then I'm going to set the workbook as this workbook. And then I'm going to set SHT equals this workbook dot worksheets equals roster. Next, I'm going to paste in the module name, then the function name, and then return the sheet that we want to start the code on. Now, if we step into this, we can see the code in action. I'm going to set a breakpoint before we close the workbook, and I'm just going to keep stepping into the code, select our file, and now you can see that it goes down to where we would close the workbook. We're going to keep stepping in, and you can see that it skipped the leave of absence case completely because it's not the sheet name, and it's going to go to end select. Then it's going to exit the function. Now, if we want this to copy the leave of absence tab, this will work. We'll just have to update the sheet here to say leave of absence. Now, if we keep stepping into the code again, I'm going to put another breakpoint here, and then we can see this. Then we can see it's going to skip the roster case, go straight down to leave of absence. Then it's going to run the code. Press F5 to quickly go through it. And then we're going to end function here. You can see that it copied 2 columns because when we specified here from A to B, we should have set this to A to D. Let's remove the breakpoints. Now if we just run through this code by pressing the button up here, select our file, it's going to copy all the data that we want. And that's how you use the select case method. Next, I'm going to start my subroutine. We'll call this formulas. Next, we're going to declare a few variables. We're going to declare sheet 1 as worksheet and sheet 2 as worksheet. And then next we're going to tell Excel what sheet 1 and sheet 2 are. So simply put, sheet 1 is roster, sheet 2 is our summary tab. And then next, we're going to make sure our summary tab is clear of any data. Then we're going to copy our data into our summary sheet from our roster sheet. So we're going to put sheet 1 dot range A1 dot current region because we want to copy everything in that range dot copy to sheet 2, which is our summary sheet, starting in range A1. So now we're going to go into our summary sheet and we're going to run this code. Now you can see that it copies, but what happens if your roster tab has cell formatting? So let's say we're going to put some color in here, go back into our summary sheet, and we're going to run this code. You notice that it copied the color as well. So what if you don't want any of the cell formatting? Simple enough. We're going to put our destination in a new line, and then we're going to enter dot paste special, Excel paste values. And now if we run this code, and now it's going to paste without any cell formatting. So if we go back to our roster tab, we can see that the cell formatting is still there. And we go back to our summary tab, we have no cell formatting. Next, we're going to declare another variable, LR as long, because we want to find the last row. So I don't know about everyone, but usually my data set is always different number of rows, etc. Then we're going to need to declare another variable called last row. We want to find the last row in a data set if it always changes. Okay, next we're going to tell Excel what last row is. So we're going to start with our summary sheet dot cells rows dot count because we want to count the number of rows, and then comma 1 because we want to use column A. And then we're going to do end Excel up because we want to count from the bottom up dot row. Next we're going to do with sheet 2 because we want the formula to be inside sheet 2. And then we're going to enter end with. Now in range C1, we want to do a start date. So we're going to do dot range C1 dot value equals start date inside quotation marks. Now we wanted to use the formula to pull the start date from the leave of absence. So we're going to start a new line and enter range C2 semicolon to C because we want to use the whole column. Then with the ampersand sign, LR for our last row, dot formula. And then the formula, we're going to use a simple VLOOKUP formula. Next, we're going to use in range, in cell D1, we're going to use, we want to find the end date. And then same thing, so from D2 to D and last row, dot formula, we're going to find the leave of absence end date. Next, in cell E1, we want to find the status of the leave of absence, and we're going to set another formula to find that. So from E2 to E and last row, we're going to use another VLOOKUP to find the status. And then now we can simply run our code. And you'll notice that the formula worked. And you'll notice the columns for start date and end date return some funky numbers. If you want to fix that and show it a natural date, we can also do that as well. We'll enter range C2, starting from C2 to column D. All the way down to the last row, we're going to use the number format, and then we're going to enter the format as month, day, year. Now, if we run this code again, it's going to give us the proper month, day, year for the start and end date. And I'm going to start my new sub called formatting. As usual, I'm going to declare some variables that I'll be using in this module. So sheet as worksheet and LR as. Next, we're going to specify what SHT is. So it's going to be summary sheet. Next, we're going to find the last row in the summary sheet. So LR equals sheet.cells. We're going to count the rows in column A, starting from the bottom up. Next, we're going to say with sheet dot range, and then we're going to specify E2 to E inside your double quotes, ampersand sign LR for last row. Next, we're going to make sure we have our end with statement. And as usual, I want to make sure that there's no other format conditions in this column, so we're going to delete any previous format conditions. Next, we're going to add a text string format condition with leave of absence. And the text operator is Excel contains. Next, I'm going to add another format condition for the interior color. So the choice of color is dependent on the user. Next, I also want to add another format condition for the font color. Next, we're going to run this code. And you can see that anybody with leave of absence status will be highlighted. And there's also another leave type you'll notice here that is leave with pay. Now, if you also want to include that as well, we can do that. So we're simply just going to copy this and add a new line. And then we're going to change this to from leave of absence to leave with pay. Next, we're going to change the format conditions for the interior color and font from 1 to 2 because we have two different format conditions. Next, we're going to run this code with F5, and you'll notice that leave with pay and leave of absence are both highlighted. Now, if you want to highlight the entire row, we can do that as well. We're going to change a few things. We're going to change from E2 to A2 to column E and last row. That stays the same. Next, we're going to change where it says Excel text string to Excel expression. And we're going to delete string and the text operator, and we're going to change it to formula1 semicolon equals, and then inside your double quotes, we're going to do equals $sign because we want to lock our column, E2 equals, and then whenever you use a text in a formula in VBA, it always has to be inside two sets of double quotes. So we're going to add two sets of double quotes. And then we're going to put our text string leave of absence. And then we're going to do the same for the next text. And then we're going to do the same. We're going to copy this. And we're going to change where it says leave of absence to leave with pay. Now we're going to run this, and you can see that the entire row that has leave with pay and leave of absence are both highlighted. Okay, so let's say you want to add some cell formatting. We can do that as well. So let's say I want to highlight the header row and make it bold. Let's do that. So we're going to do with sheet dot range, and then from range A1 all the way to the right, which will be the end of the last cell. Next, we're going to do end with. Make sure we always have that in case we ever forget. It's going to cause an error. Then we're going to do dot font dot bold equals true. Then let's add some color to the cell. So we're going to do dot interior dot color equals RGB. I'm going to use 155, 194, 230. This is going to give it like a blue color. Okay, so let's run this. And you can see our header row is bolded and with a blue color cell background. Okay, so let's say you want to add borders. We can do that as well with sheet.range A1.current region. Again, we're going to select all the data in that range dot borders. Make sure we have end with, and then we're going to say dot line style equals Excel continuous. Then we're going to do dot color equals RGB, and we're going to do black lines. So we're going to do 0, 0, 0. All right, so now let's remove all the cell color. Make sure there's no border, remove the bold. And I'm gonna run this and let's see how it goes. Oh, there you go. As you can see, the header row is bolded with a cell color and we have borders as well. So now that we have all this ready, let's combine everything into one sub so that we can automate it. So I'm going to copy this, place it down below. I'm going to change this to roster. Then I'm going to call our formula. So formula.formulas. And then I'm going to call the formatting. So format.formatting. Now let's delete all this and let's see it in action. I'm going to press this button up here. Now it's going to ask for the label of absence. So we're going to select that file and then the roster file. And then we can see everything here compiled rather quickly. I hope everyone finds this tutorial useful. And if there's a better way to automate your report, let me know in the comments down below. As always, see you in the next video.